Babies, how are we today? Uh, Better light. All right. Today's script is true growth in nature is dual. And here I'm saying the roots in the ground have resistance, but constantly struggle. The branch doesn't have resistance, but are exposed and they don't have a consenting environment. They don't have consenting in their environment. What the fuck did I mean? Okay. So the roots in the ground, like we're talking about like the dual nature of things, right? So we use the tree because there's the up above ground and the underground. But so the the roots in the ground have resistance from the earth, so they're constantly struggling. But the branches don't have that struggle, though their environment is they're very much exposed to their environment. And here I feel like there's a difference between like the root is exposed to its environment, but in a way it's protected by it, whilst the branch isn't, because like winds and storms and rain and electricity and all that shit. And really, I wrote here they are exposed and don't have cons. I don't know if it's consenting that I wrote. I don't know if this word here is consenting. But anyway, so there's this true growth in nature is dual. There are the roots that have resistance, and but but their environment technically protects them. And there's the something hit me hard right now. And there's the small, and there are the branches, which basically are very much vulnerable and exposed, but they have no resistance. Why does this feel kind of like cute to me? Me explaining it from a resistance but protected and exposed but vulnerable. Like they don't have resistance, but they are exposed and vulnerable. What I'm saying, okay, so picking on the pattern that I'm always with, most of our engagements are based on relationships. So there's your relationship with the outside world, and then there's your relationship with yourself. So your relationship with yourself technically is your relationship with your reality, correct? Well, your relationship with the outside world is your relationship with your reality. And your relationship with the inside world. No. So I think here is where it's not really like linear this way because my relationship with the outside world is my relationship with the environment the outside world creates that I have to interact with. And on the other side, on the dual side of it, is my relationship with my reality. Because ultimately, if I'm just basically being pulled by the external environment, what happens is my reality kind of shifts into what that environment is. And if I have a stronger relationship with my reality, then that reality kind of like expresses itself in the external environment. But it doesn't feel like that's the outside. I'm still basically that's the dual nature of the outside world and my relationship with it. So my relationship with the inside world is probably the self that projects into the actual reality and the ego that projects to the outside world. It kind of makes sense, right? Because like if you're going to be looking at it, if there's a central focal point, and if there's the outside, and then there's basically like what's external in the tangible world experienced by like is what builds the ego or is what creates this facade that you basically become yourself. And it's a rest versus activity. Because when you're active, you're basically operating from an ego's perspective, or at the very least from whatever ego you have. And when you're restful, you're kind of like taking that ego, kind of like cleaning it up, re reinstilling your pieces or the values of the self and the kind of like principles that you have in order for the ego not to go astray. So it's not really a one side and another side. It's it's the relationship you have with your ego that also interferes with the outside world. And your relationship with the outside world also interferes with your ego. But to have a strong relationship between these three, you also kind of have to have the balance on the other side, which is a strong relationship within then yourself and your own like reality, your own version of reality, your own vision of reality, you, the way reality kind of interacts with you. And when it comes to, I guess, like yourself, that's the activity you do when it comes to like your ego to the outside world is I wouldn't want to say opposing, but it has an other side that is basically you can't the same thing that affects the outside world and the ego is not going to be the same thing that affects your reality and the inside world. It's a completely different form of activity, but it's still an activity. And the balance between, well, the shifts between these activities, I feel like we create these environments. Like when you get home, in a way, you kind of like you release your tension, so you're less egocentric and you become a lot more relaxed. And that relaxation kind of allows you to be more active in the other way that you can actually interact with yourself and with your like reality. Whilst when you leave the house, you kind of like have that environment when it shifts. It's probably the comfort space or the place of comfort that puts stuff to you. For some reason, I'm thinking of flow is because sometimes you enter flow out of pressure, and sometimes you enter flow out of comfort. And in a way, you get to determine what parts of the outside world you want to kind of like limit and what parts of yourself you would want to expose. These are one of the most like the profound skills that we actually like learn through experience because we develop ourselves in order to be able to like to take charge in every situation, whether internal or external. Although taking charge in every situation needs a different taking charge, needs a different approach to taking charge. So now hear me out, man. The resistance that truly happens, because like we're still speaking about the roots of the tree and the branches of the tree. And I feel like the trunk is I. I am the trunk. I am the connection to the roots, and I am the connection to the actual like, branches and flowers and fruits and leaves. I am the connection to these two. So, which part is the roots? I personally feel a bit more exposed, feel more comfortable with the world. And when I'm around myself, I feel like vulnerable. But that's probably the mask, right? Because the reason I feel vulnerable probably sometimes with it around myself is probably because it's my roots are naked, are exposed when they shouldn't be. And in a way, I'm comfortable with the world, and given my history, because I like For a period of 10 years, I basically built and closed 9 personal companies and a few for other people. And it feels like I'm okay with my branches being cut, but that's the horrible way to feel comfortable, right? We've all had that where we kind of like perceive ourselves as tough, but the reality is to prove our toughness, we kind of like, we're okay just being tough. True toughness is not handling a punch, it's being able to avoid it, right? Something within that realm. I like this. I can't believe I said that I feel vulnerable around myself. In a way, uh, there's a bit of shame or disappointment. There's a bit of calling me out. It's a video, but it's a video, man. I think that should end it as it is right now for the sake of just allowing that to sink in. I love you guys.